The cafe hummed with a low murmur of voices and the soft patter of rain against the glass. Emma Lawson pushed through the door, clutching a soaked umbrella in one hand and balancing her diaper bag on the other arm. Her 2-year-old son, Noah, wriggled in her grasp, his curious eyes darting toward the pastry counter. She was 20 minutes early, but nerves made every second feel late. This interview, this single chance, was her lifeline. As she adjusted Noah on her hip, her phone buzzed. "Ms. Lawson. Mr. Reed will see you now," the receptionist said crisply. Emma's heart stuttered. Of course, that was the moment Noah decided to wail. Flushed with embarrassment, she entered the office anyway. "I'm so sorry," she blurted, her voice trembling. "Sorry, I brought my baby." Behind the mahogany desk sat Alexander Reed, the famously cold CEO of Reed Enterprises. His eyes, steel gray, unreadable, studied her. Emma braced for dismissal. Instead, he stood surprising her. With careful grace, he lifted Noah from her arms. The child reached for his tie, giggling. "Don't apologize," Alexander murmured, a faint smile touching his lips. "He seems to have good taste." And just like that, the air shifted. Something tender and irreversible began. Emma's life had become a series of uphill climbs with no summit in sight. Once a bright business student with dreams of managing her own firm, she had watched those dreams fade the day she saw the 2 pink lines appear. Her ex-boyfriend, his promises as fragile as glass, vanished before Noah was even born, leaving her with a crib, a pile of unpaid bills, and a silence that echoed louder than words. Every day was survival, juggling part-time shifts, rationing groceries, and praying the landlord wouldn't change the locks before she scraped together rent. The interview at Reed Enterprises wasn't just an opportunity, it was a last lifeline dangling over the edge. Alexander Reed studied her resume with quiet precision. "You'll start as an assistant," he finally said, his deep voice steady but not unkind. "Let's see how you manage, with both your jobs." Emma blinked, unsure she'd heard right. Was he pitying her or challenging her? Gratitude and suspicion wrestled in her chest. No one had given her a chance in years. As she left his office clutching the offer letter, she whispered to herself, "Don't mess this up, Emma. Not this time." Alexander Reed had built his empire on control, every decision precise, every emotion locked away behind an iron will. For years, he had moved through life like a machine of efficiency and silence, untouchable and unshakable. But since Emma Lawson stepped into his office, with her nervous smile and her baby's infectious laugh, something in him had started to shift. His staff noticed first. The once imposing CEO who rarely smiled now paused to ask about everyone's day. He left the office before midnight, sometimes even before sunset. The break room, once stocked with bitter black coffee and nothing else, now mysteriously offered juice boxes and animal crackers. Still, Alexander's gaze often drifted to the clock around 5. That was when Emma would hurry out, cheeks flushed, to pick up Noah from daycare. The image stirred something buried deep, a memory of his late fiancé's laughter, a nursery never used, a tiny heartbeat that never saw light. When Noah's giggles echoed through the hallways, Alexander would stop for just a moment, closing his eyes. It was the sound of a ghost he thought he'd never hear again. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. Offices had a way of magnifying gossip, twisting kindness into scandal. Emma could feel the stares when she passed through the rows of cubicles, the subtle pauses in conversation, the forced smiles that didn't reach anyone's eyes. "She's the boss's favorite," someone muttered. "He's only nice to her because of pity, or something else." Each word cut deeper than she wanted to admit. She'd worked too hard to be reduced to a rumor. So she doubled her effort, arriving early, staying late, skipping meals. Her hands trembled from exhaustion, but she refused to give them a reason to doubt her. Alexander noticed. One evening, finding her still at her desk, he said softly, "Emma, you don't need to earn permission to exist here. You already do." Her breath caught. No one had told her that since Noah was born. And somehow it meant everything. The sky opened up without warning, sheets of rain blurring the city into gray streaks. Emma's heart raced as she carried Noah through the downpour, his skin hot against her chest. His little body trembled, his cries weak and panicked. She'd never felt so helpless. The daycare couldn't reach her fast enough, and her phone calls went unanswered, until in desperation she dialed her manager's number. Minutes later, when the hospital doors burst open, it wasn't her manager who appeared. It was Alexander Reed. The CEO, still in his immaculate suit, hair damp from the rain, took Noah from her trembling arms as if it were the most natural thing in the world. In the sterile hum of the emergency room, Alexander held Noah close, humming under his breath, a lullaby that didn't quite belong to him but came from somewhere deep. When Noah stirred awake, his tiny fist clutched Alexander's tie again. "You again, little man," he murmured, smiling softly. Emma stared, heart twisting. Something in that quiet moment changed. Not loudly, but permanently. Emma's world, which had just begun to steady, cracked open the moment she saw him, Ryan, standing in the lobby of Reed Enterprises in his wrinkled jacket and forced grin. He looked nothing like the man she once loved. "Emma," he said, spreading his arms as though she should welcome him. "I've been thinking, maybe we can make things right. For Noah." Her stomach twisted. Ryan wasn't there for family. He was there for opportunity. Word had spread that she worked for a powerful CEO, and now he wanted a piece of it. When Emma tried to usher him out quietly, he raised his voice, drawing stares. That's when Alexander appeared, composed but his eyes sharp as glass. "If you want to discuss custody," he said coldly, stepping between them, "do it through legal channels. Not here." The confrontation left Emma shaken, embarrassed yet strangely safe. Later, as Alexander drove her home in silence, rain pattering on the windshield, he finally spoke. "Don't let the people who left you decide who you are." Emma turned to him, realizing with quiet awe, this man who had lost so much was teaching her how to heal. Days slipped into weeks, and Emma soon became the quiet heartbeat of Reed Enterprises. Files were organized before meetings, reports flawless, crises handled with calm precision. Even Alexander's notoriously high standards began to soften around her. He claimed their frequent lunches were for business updates, but everyone knew better, especially when Noah joined, perched on his mother's lap, babbling between bites of fruit. It became routine, something unspoken yet deeply comforting. Emma caught glimpses of the man behind the title, the way Alexander's gaze softened when Noah laughed, the rare smile that reached his eyes. Then came the annual company picnic. Sunshine spilled across the lakeside as laughter filled the air. Noah, curious as ever, toddled too close to the water's edge. Gasps erupted, but Alexander was faster, sweeping him up before he slipped. Noah clung to his neck, giggling. "Looks like the CEO found his new family," someone joked. Emma flushed crimson, but Alexander just smiled, saying nothing. Later that night, as the city lights flickered outside his car window, he confessed softly, "You and Noah make this place feel like home again." For Emma, who'd lived too long in survival mode, those words felt like the start of something real. It started with a single photograph. Alexander in the park, holding Noah in his arms while Emma stood beside them, sunlight catching the soft curve of her smile. To any bystander, it was a tender moment. To the tabloids, it was a headline waiting to explode. By morning, news sites screamed, "CEO's secret family, the woman and child behind Reed Enterprises." Within hours, the company's stock dipped, and the board summoned Alexander for an emergency meeting. Investors wanted reassurance, explanations, damage control. His assistant cornered him in his office. "If you don't deny it, your reputation could crumble. Say it's a misunderstanding." Alexander's expression hardened. "No," he said quietly. "She's done nothing wrong. Neither of them have." While the city buzzed with speculation, Emma sat in her apartment, staring at the photo that had appended everything. Guilt and fear pressed like a weight on her chest. She couldn't be the reason he lost everything he'd built. So before dawn, she packed her things, typed a short letter, and left it on his desk. "Thank you for everything. You deserve better than the chaos I bring." Then she walked away, heartbroken but convinced it was the only way to protect him. The moment Alexander read Emma's resignation letter, the calm, composed CEO vanished. His chest tightened, the words blurring before his eyes. "She's gone. Not dismissed, gone." The anger that followed wasn't aimed at her but at himself, for not protecting her, for not seeing how cornered she'd felt. He didn't waste a second. The daycare said she'd withdrawn Noah that morning. Her apartment empty. The hospital where she'd once worked, no trace. Each dead end chipped away at his restraint until the last place left was the small park near her old neighborhood. There she was, sitting on a bench beneath a canopy of amber leaves, Noah asleep in her arms, peace and sorrow mingling on her face. Alexander approached quietly. "You left without saying goodbye," he said, his voice unsteady. Emma looked up, eyes glistening. "I didn't want to make you choose between me and your world." He knelt beside her, breath trembling. "Emma," he whispered, "you and Noah are my world." The boardroom buzzed with tension, reporters packed shoulder to shoulder, cameras flashing like lightning. Alexander stood at the head of the long glass table, the picture of composure, though his heart pounded with the weight of what he was about to do. When the room finally quieted, he stepped forward, voice firm yet sincere. "Yes," he began, meeting the sea of expectant eyes. "The rumors are true." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "I care deeply for Emma Lawson and her son. My personal life isn't a scandal. It's my second chance." For a moment silence hung heavy. Then, slowly, the energy shifted. The headlines that had painted him as reckless now transformed into something else. The CEO who chose compassion. Investors respected his courage. The world admired his honesty. Across the city, Emma sat on her couch, Noah in her lap, watching the live broadcast. Tears blurred the screen as she heard his words. All her fear, her doubts, her instinct to run, melted away. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't dared to hope for. She felt chosen. Weeks later, Reed Enterprises hummed with a new kind of energy. The scandal had faded into a story of transformation, of strength, redemption, and unexpected love. Emma walked through the glass doors once more, but this time, her nameplate read Head of Community Relations, a role Alexander had designed specifically for her. Her days were filled with purpose, organizing outreach programs, mentoring single parents, turning her hardships into hope for others. And Noah, now the office's unofficial mascot, toddled down the halls, charming everyone he met. Even the stern board members couldn't resist his smile. That evening, Emma stood on Alexander's balcony, the city glittering below like scattered stars. He joined her, their shoulders brushing, the air quiet and warm. "Emma," he said gently, taking her hand, "you taught me that love isn't about perfection, it's about staying when it's messy." She smiled, eyes soft. "And you taught me that sometimes, home is a person." Noah's laughter rang out between them as Alexander pulled them close, his family. Finally, undeniably, complete. A soft drizzle coated the city in silver as Emma stood outside the same cafe where everything had begun. But this time, there was no frantic rush, no trembling hands. Only calm confidence in her stride and a warmth in her chest that came from being truly seen. Noah's laughter chimed through the air, bright and unburdened, as he pointed at puddles, daring them to splash back. Moments later, Alexander appeared beside her. His suit crisp, his smile easy, a simple gold band gleaming on his hand. He opened the cafe door and arched a brow playfully. "No apologies today." Emma laughed, her voice light and certain. "Never again." Inside, the familiar scent of coffee wrapped around them. On the wall hung a framed newspaper clipping. From cold CEO to family man. Alexander Reed's story of second chances. She turned to him, eyes shining. "We did it, didn't we?" Alexander brushed a kiss across her forehead. "No, you did it. You brought life back into my world." As Noah ran to the window, pressing his tiny hands to the glass, raindrops tracing down the pane. Emma smiled. The same rain, the same place. Only now it felt like home,